Let's welcome aboard right now Keith Hernandez. And SNY will have the game today, 1 o'clock, a little Mets baseball this afternoon. Gary, Keith, and Ron on the call. Hey, Keith, Mark Malusis and Maggie Gray, thanks for a couple minutes this morning.
My pleasure. New season.
Yeah, it's good to have baseball back, Keith.
Yes, it is. I agree 100%. And a full season, it looks like. Let's hope.
Let's hope. Let's definitely hope. Okay, let's talk about the Mets a little bit. Let's just dive right in because, Keith, I think everyone, obviously, we love your opinion. You know these guys very well, and you watched Pete Alonso struggle last year. And obviously, you know first base better than anybody walking this earth. What do you expect from Pete this season? And if he asked you for advice after what he went through last year, granted, had a much better September than the beginning of the season and kind of pulled it together at the end, but what advice would you give Pete Alonso?
Well, it's a fresh start, and, he's a very confident guy for someone. He did not have a good year last year, and I do believe in a sophomore jinx. I think that when you come up as a rookie and if you tear it up like Pete did, which was just record-breaking, the 52 home runs, I think it was just out of, off the charts. And then you come back the next year, things kind of happen in the rookie season, and they just snowball. And you have this great season, then you have to come to spring training in your sophomore year with expectations. And if it doesn't start out right, you had the season was interrupted last year. It started late, a lot of negative things. And I think that Pete lost his confidence, got down, but he's had a whole winter to shake that season off. It's a fresh start. I like his attitude going in. He just started chasing balls in and out of the strike zone, inside, outside, and that's just pressing. Everything speeds up. So hopefully, nothing would be better for Pete than a tremendous April to kind of take that pressure off and get him rolling.
Keith, when you look at third base, how confident are you that J.D. Davis is going to be able to acquit himself defensively to hold on to that third base job?
Well, he made some defensive adjustments in his preparation with each pitch that helped him out in his range. I mean, he's not a great, a great defensive player. I think he has to hit number one, and whenever you have guys that are a little challenged defensively, they've got to be productive, and that's what he did 2 years ago. And again, it's hard to assess players on a 60-game season last year, and with the pandemic and all the uneasiness, not playing in front of crowds, it's just really hard to judge. Now, this is another year for J.D. He is going to be the third baseman, and he is going to play every day, and he's going to have his opportunities. So it would be great if he could get off to have a kind of year he had 2 years ago. I know he kind of slumped back a little bit last year. He said he missed Chili Davis a lot. Okay, fine. I never really had that. I never really leaned on my hitting coach when I played. But the players today seem to be more like, need more tutoring, and they kind of like that. So I think with Chili back in camp, I think that'll be helpful for J.D. So you know what? You're only as good as your last season. You're only as good as your last game. So, J.D.'s going into this spring training. He's got something to prove.
Keith Hernandez is our guest. Keith, it's funny. We talk about the guys who had, not very good 2020 seasons and how they can turn the page and kind of look past it. What about the guys who did have good seasons in 2020? Like if I'm Dom Smith, and he was great last year, what should Dom Smith be taking away from last season, if anything?
Well, Dom has got to be the happiest guy on the planet because I really felt that when you had Kevin Long here as the hitting coach and teaching that Yankee style of hitting, which is pull the ball, left-handers to pull, that's not Dom's game. Dom is an average hitter. He's a 300 hitter. He's a gap-to-gap hitter with power and a very, very, very good breaking ball hitter. And I think he just got back to where he was. I remember having talks with him, and he got sent down, and he got too many people giving noise and cluttering your mind and getting you away from what got you here. I remember when I was playing, it was always like if someone tried to change you, it says, well, what got you here? What got you to the dance in the first place? Why change? So I think he got back to where he's at. He's got to be going into this season very, very, very confident, I guess, because of no DH. He's going to be our left fielder. So as the season starts, because Alonso has to play, and his only position is first base. So it really, really hurt the Mets that they lost the DH. I am not a DH fan. I like the pitcher in there hitting. I think it adds to the game, the strategy of the game. But the Mets now, it hurt them defensively without having the DH.
No doubt about it. What is Dom's ceiling in left field? Like, what do you think? How can he be serviceable? Can he be good? What are you expecting?
Well, I tell you what, when you put someone out of position, and Dom is not an outfielder, he's a first baseman, and he's a pretty good first baseman, pretty good defensively, very good. And you put him out, young kid, that's just trying to get his feet wet in the big leagues, and you put him out of position. A lot of times, it can affect them mentally if they don't make the play in the field. They take it back in and they lose. They're down, and it affects their offense. It didn't affect Dom, and I thought Dom played whatever he could get to. He makes the play. He doesn't cover a lot of ground. He doesn't go like any guy that's inexperienced outfielder. The most difficult thing is going back on a ball and near the wall. He's got to play deeper, and it's easier to come in on a ball. So he's got to play deeper this year, and there's a lot of responsibility to have a really, really good center fielder that can cover gap to gap, because the Mets are going to need a quality center fielder, and that's why they went out and got Pilar and Almora. They got some defensive players there. They got enough offense where they can pack a 230 hitter in there and put him out in center field, or a 240 hitter, as long as he can cover the gaps. Because, Conforto's a very good outfielder too, but Conforto doesn't cover a lot of ground laterally, and the Mets really, really need a Gold Glove type center fielder.
Keith, the acquisition of Lindor, which excited every Met fan and sent a message across baseball. What do you think Lindor's going to be here for the Mets this season? What does that acquisition signify to the rest of this team?
Well, he's 27 years old. And to me, it was the steal of the whole offseason. I thought the Mets just had a phenomenal offseason. They not only addressed their issues on the roster on the major league level, but also on the AAA level, which was depleted. So they've really bolstered their roster, and they have a lot of depth. Lindor, the old saying is, to win, you got to be strong up the middle. So that's your two middle infielders, your center fielder, your catcher. They addressed two of the three problems in Lindor, of course, and the catcher from the White Sox. So shortstop is such an important position for your defense as a team up the middle. And Lindor brings 2 Gold Gloves. So I am just thrilled about that. And he's an offensive player as well. He's a veteran. He's been in the playoffs. He's been in postseason with Cleveland. He's been there. So he is a seasoned veteran. And also I like his attitude. Mr. Smile is his nickname, and you can see it in spring. And he's been helping J.D. Davis. He's kind of one of those guys that likes to spread the wealth, I guess. So I'm just thrilled. I haven't never seen him play that much because it's the American League. And I'm just looking forward to watching this young man play on an everyday basis.
No doubt about it. Keith Hernandez is our guest. We're talking to the former MVP. Keith, in terms of the contracts, though, it's one of the biggest storylines of the offseason is whether they'll get a contract extension done with Lindor before the season starts. Conforto as well. Take us from the player's point of view here. You can talk about compartmentalizing. You can talk about focusing in on baseball. But when does it become maybe a distraction when you have this contract situation looming?
Well, you normally, it's each individual is different. Now, Lindor has said he doesn't want to negotiate during the season, and that to me is just a negotiating stance right there. I mean, the player can be totally removed from negotiations. It's between the general manager and the agent. That's why you have an agent, so you can focus on playing. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue. I think negotiations will probably continue when the season goes on, if they don't come to terms. And it's also, I think, the reason why Steve Cohen, the new owner, said he would spend, but spend prudently. And I think he's done that. They focused on one position. He wasn't a free agent, Lindor. They got him on a trade, and it was a big steal to get Carrasco with that. So that addressed, it's really like getting a free agent as far as I'm concerned. That was a big talent, a superstar they picked up. So now I think when the back of their mind was, okay, I got to believe they want to keep Conforto. You talked about Dom Smith having a great year last year.
Yeah.
Conforto had a phenomenal year last year,
point.
coming into his own, quiet leader on the ball club. I got to believe you got to find a way to keep Lindor and Conforto.
Keith, the bullpen, Edwin Diaz. We've talked about guys having down years last year. Edwin Diaz seemed to figure something out back half of last year. What about him assuming this closer's job, and can he put it together through a 162-game season being leaned on as being this team's closer?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I think what helped Mr. Edwin Diaz last year was there was nobody in the stands. And, you know, New York fans can be tough. And I think it took a lot of pressure off him. He didn't get off to a good it was July.
Yeah.
But he kind of, as the season progressed, he started pitching a lot better. So he's a big key. If he can pitch like he did in Seattle, the Mets got themselves an all-star closer. They've also brought in some other people. I was concerned really about left-handers in the bullpen, and they went out and got some veteran left-handers, so they've addressed that. I always feel the bullpen, particularly when you have 8 guys out there in the bullpen. You know, back when I played, you had 10 pitchers, you had 5 starters, and you had 5 relievers. You have 8 now, and for a team not to have 2 left-handers out there, for a manager to get a left-handed out early or middle or late in the game is sinful. So I think they bridged that gap. They brought in some veteran right-handers. So the bullpen is definitely beefed up. There's no doubt about it.
Final one for me, and Keith Hernandez is our guest and calling the game today on SNY, the spring training game. And obviously really appreciate you carving out some time for us today, Keith. The game on SNY starts at 1. The one that maybe got away, Sandy was asked about this yesterday in a Zoom call, not to focus in on guys that aren't here versus guys that are, but I'm just curious if you think that the Mets may have dodged a bullet with Trevor Bauer, or do you think that he would have been successful in New York?
Again, I think it was a matter of dollars. I don't think that what Bauer's the social media adventures had anything to do with it. It certainly would have been nice to have. I think they're planning on Syndergaard coming back in mid-season. I think they went out and got Carrasco. They got a couple left-handers. I can't think of their names on the top of my head right now. So I just felt, I think that they had topped out on their spending, and they did spend. Everybody, they spent all over, I believe, close to $100 million in the offseason, or over $100 million. I'm not sure. So they didn't stand pat. I think, and they've made, to me, this has been the greatest offseason the Mets have had in my memory, as far as addressing the needs of their roster. This ball club now is solid.
With that, Keith, I want to ask you about Rojas. Happy that Rojas is getting another opportunity to come back, even with the ownership change and Sandy stepping back in and the changes up and down the Meta organization. What does Rojas take from last year? What did you see from last year with him in his first year as a manager that you need to see better or improvements with Luis Rojas in the dugout this year?
Well, the players like him. A lot of the players, like Davey Johnson in the 80s, Davey managed them in minor leagues. And Same case is true for Luis. I felt the one thing that he didn't do a good job in last year was I thought that he stayed with pitchers too long, and that means starters and relievers. And I just think that he has to be a little bit more of a captain hook, and if a pitcher doesn't have it, and I mean, our bullpen was just awful last year. We know that, and how many options do you have? The bullpen's much improved, so he's going to have more talent in that bullpen to draw from. I think one of the big things to recognize, and I played for Whitey Herzog. Whitey Herzog said, and this is from Whitey managed for a long, long time, and his view from the dugout. Whitey always said, "I can tell if a pitcher doesn't have it," and I'm not going to stick with a guy if it's 3-0 in the third inning and he's in trouble, and if I stick with him and there's a base hit, all of a sudden it's 6-0. Now our team's out of it. Basically, it's harder to come back on. But if that's at 3-0, my team can come back. So that's the things I think he needs to improve on a little bit. And I think he needs to lean on Jeremy Hepner a little bit as pitching coach. I mean, Davey with Mel Stoudemire leaned on Mel a lot because Mel was a pitcher. He knows. Yeah, so sure. I think there has to be a little cooperation there. I'm sure there is.
Keith, last one for me, and that would be, we were talking about Lindor before, and he was kind of a little critical early on when he first arrived down in Port St. Lucie of analytics, where it's kind of gotten a little crazy the way that players are analyzed. I'm curious from your perspective, do you think we've gotten a little out of whack, baseball's gotten out of whack about analytics, the way the game is looked at, the way the players are looked at now?
I think that there's a lot of good things in analytics, and then there's a lot of overkill. And, it's up to the player individually to draw what he wants to draw from analytics. But you cannot dictate how a game's going to play. You can't plan a campaign and the game's going to come out this way and we're going to do it this way, that way. Analytics weren't around in my time. So I relied on my eyesight, my visual, my experiences at the plate. In the field, I knew where hitters hit the ball, and so I didn't have charts to go to and check out what their tendencies were. You just learned on the fly out there, and things are different now. It's a nice tool. So I think each individual player can use what they want and then throw away what they don't like. It's up to the player. Pete Alonso loves it.
Yeah.
He's also deactivated his social media.
I'm happy for that. I am. He's focus on baseball. Just focus on baseball. It's hard enough. You hit 300, you fail 70% of the time. Focus on the game.
Fair.
Wise words.
Keith, it's great that baseball is back. Yourself, Ron, Gary, you guys will be calling the game tonight. Mets and Stros, 1 o'clock on SNY. And we appreciate the time this morning.
All right, my pleasure, guys. I'll be talking to you during the season. I'm excited about the year.
Yeah, it should be.
Us too.
Should be a good year for the Mets, no question. Keith Hernandez.